entrepreneurship is a battle. It's very tough to be out there on your own. So having someone that you can bounce ideas off of, they're emotionally high when you're emotionally low, and vice versa, is something that I definitely recommend.
Welcome back to the Mark Faris Experience. Today we have Neil Cuggy here. He is the president and COO at GoodFood. What a phenomenal success story. Neil scaled his company to over 600 million, exceeding 1 billion market cap here. So you're going to hear some phenomenal stories here. We were talking a little bit about the scaling up period there that Neil went through, and you guys are in for a real treat today. Neil, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I'm excited to have the conversation today.
Yeah, right on. So, listeners, you guys are in for a treat. Neil, let's go back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, and let's go back. Maybe like when was it that you knew you wanted to be a business owner, and maybe what was that kind of that first step towards actually making it happen?
Yeah, for sure. For me, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a house where there was a lot of entrepreneurship around me. My dad ran a business. He had an engineering consulting business that he started right around the same time that my brother and I were born. My mom always had like a Tupperware lady or a candle lady type of business going on in the background, kind of the multi-layer marketing businesses. My grandfather sold ties out of the back of his car, despite being a paint salesman. So entrepreneurship was kind of always around in my household. So I was very fortunate from that perspective. For me personally, I went through school being a finance geek, essentially focused on the markets, focusing on mergers and acquisitions, loving to read the Wall Street Journal. So I really thought I was going to be a little bit different and kind of pursuing more professional services path. But quickly into my post education kind of early career, I realized that I needed to kind of run my own show. We were looking at a lot of different businesses, and we're saying, I can do it better than that, or like they're not that smart. I can do it. I can do it well as well. And I would say it was 2013 that I found my business partner, which was the real catalyst for me. Meeting someone that I could kind of go to battle with every day and had different complementary skills to myself was really the kind of final piece of the puzzle that I was looking for. And it was advice that I got from an early mentor that kind of positioned me for that as well. So maybe 12 years ago now.
Okay, so how old were you at that point? 2013.
20, I was 24.
24. So you met a business partner that had complementary skill sets. Can you talk a little bit about that and the importance of going into partnership and maybe what to look for when you're picking that partner? Because that's one of the cool things about your story is you still have a great relationship. So maybe what was it like going in that set a very strong foundation for them being your partner, and that, moving forward, if you're giving any advice to an entrepreneur going into a partnership that they should look for?
It's not an easy decision. I think I definitely consider myself very fortunate to have found someone who was a natural fit. And going into the relationship at the time, we didn't have a checklist that we were trying to follow, right? It was like I was trying to find a business partner that was, someone I admired, someone I wanted to work with, someone that wasn't, good at exactly the same stuff as I was. But it's like any relationship, whether it's your roommate or your spouse. You don't really know what you're getting into until you spend a lot of time together and you go through different parts of life. So for us, I think I was looking for someone right off the bat was someone like I said who I admired, and I was like, okay, this person's smart, driven, and values kind of aligned with myself for as much as we can kind of iron out in the early stages. But the fortunate part for me was over time, over the past 12 plus years of working together with my business partner, we've spent a lot of time together. We've probably eaten 60 or 70% of our meals together over the last 12 years. So you can imagine how often we're together and talking business and talking opportunities. And fortunate for me, like my expertise is around the how things come together, the nuts and bolts of things, process orientation, and kind of scaling complex systems. whereas he's definitely more abstract thinker, thinks about strategy and product and kind of where we need to be and how we need to position from a narrative perspective. So we've been able to kind of separate those two things on our daily plates of what we need to work through. But it definitely wasn't conscious at the beginning. It was really like, oh, okay, I'm good at this, you're good at that. Let's try to kind of divide and
Mhm.
conquer. And then you kind of gravitate towards what you're naturally excited about and where you can add value. The advice I give to entrepreneurs is, you know, similar to hiring, you kind of want to date somebody before you marry them. So try to get some, deep, awkward conversations out of the way and
Mhm.
try to get some of that, see ahead to what the dark moments could look like, because you're going to have them and you need to be prepared for having those more challenging conversations. And I think the partnership is definitely stronger than the solopreneur, because I mean,
Mhm.
as you know, like, entrepreneurship is a battle. It's very tough to be out there on your own. So having someone that you can bounce ideas off of, they're emotionally high when you're emotionally low, and vice versa, is something that I definitely recommend. And it could be a business partner, or it could be a strong co-founder that they bring on at another point in their journey, or just an amazing team. But I've seen a bunch of different ways of that working. And then the other thing that I usually point to entrepreneurs to is, if you can't get that, then there's groups like Entrepreneur Organization or Young Presidents Organization, YPO, that are designed to help entrepreneurs who are fighting the battle every day, to kind of go through those deeper questions with other people that have been through the same thing. So yeah, that's kind of how I size it up today. And ask me in 10 years, it'll probably be a completely different answer.
No, that I think that wisdom that you just shared will stand the test of time for sure. So just to confirm here, so you're more of the operations and your partner, is he a little bit more of kind of bigger picture visionary, and is that kind of the dynamic between you two? Is that right?
Yeah, he kind of helps direct the big important questions, and the what should we be working on, and the why we should be working on it. And now we have enough people on the team that we're working on those things together for the most part. And then I kind of figure out how it comes to life in a sustainable, repeatable way. And yeah, like I said, fortunately now we have other teams that surround us, so we can focus on the bigger picture things. But definitely John's the one that takes the step back and says, "Are we working on the right stuff? We've been doing this for a month and nothing's changed. Are we really working on the right stuff?" So he can kind of take us out of the weeds as an organization, and definitely myself when appropriate.
Yeah, that's so good. You had a lot of really good points there, and I would just say when you're going into partnership, like so with Neil and John is actually the same with my business partner for the real estate investment firm. So I'm more of a visionary. Like I'll get it started. I know where we're going. I'll set the vision, and then John is more like the operations, people hiring, and so we really complement each other really well on that. And you nailed it, Neil. Like entrepreneurship is hard, and you just need somebody just to like punch you on the shoulders, like, and just keep going, because it is, especially at the beginning, going through that early struggle, that early startup phase. I just read something about Elon Musk when he was kind of right at the end of the Tesla kind of early struggle phase before they blew up. Like he was sleeping like at the shop. He was fixing the cars, and the mechanics that couldn't get the car, he would get his hands in there, and he said, if we don't get this, we're going to die, right? And he was talking
Yeah,
about the company, but that kind of mindset was so important. And he's like, when he reflects back on it, you can see there's pain on his face. He's like, that was a real painful time, because like, everything is crushing in, you bet everything, the whole farm on that. And that's where, when you have a buddy that really has your true, that's not measuring things, right? Oh, you work 40 hours and I work 60 hours and we're not doing equal. It's like we're both doing 100, right? It's like 100. If you get somebody that can partner with you and truly complement your skill sets and then be like 100, I think that sets a solid foundation for partnerships.
for sure. And I also find we on the hour piece, it's something that we, in the early days, that's all you have is hours to put in, right? Like you don't have, not everybody starts off with capital to start a business or a brand to start off with. It's really just like blood, sweat, and tears that they're putting in. But you quickly realize that as you build a team, whether that's a co-founder or employee team around you, like everyone approaches those hours in different ways, and you can't be too nitty gritty on the amount of hours they're putting in. It's really about the output that they're solving for. So
Yeah, well said. Productivity for sure. So Neil, when did you guys know? Was it as soon as you guys met? Did you say we're going to get into the food business? Like, and maybe take us down that early decision making to get into food, and then like your story and your ride right through COVID is phenomenal. I want to get more into like the later on. But what was it about food? Was there like this passion for food right off the bat, or like how did that start?
yeah, for sure. So I think you know, John and I both were foodies, food lovers. My mom used to cook home cooked meals all the time. We would try interesting stuff. I worked at my wife's family pizzeria growing up. Like food was part of our life, like a lot of people, and was fortunate enough to have lots of great quality television shows as well. Growing up, Bolton Brown and Jamie Oliver, early days, and all kinds of really interesting ways to present food to kind of teenagers and young adults. And so food was just a part of my life, and similar for John. Like it was just something that he was super passionate about. It came from a family where I think his grandfather was a cook, and so for us, we looked at buying businesses at the beginning because of our background in finance. We thought we had an advantage to go and buy a business right off the bat. And what we found quickly was we couldn't find the kind of deal that made sense and the passion for the business that we wanted to pursue. Even in the food space, it was really kind of tough to find something. So when we started, we said, "What's the business model that we want to replicate? Like, what does it look like at a certain level of scale, and then what are the things that are going to make us excited to work at for the next 10, 20, 30 years, and food was one and technology was the other one. So how do we combine
Mm,
two major things that we love that are also backed by big trends around the world, eating more healthy, being more conscious of what you're putting in your body, and home cooking was definitely a trend on the rise. Getting that delivered by ordering online was also a huge trend, and building a
mm.
technology platform to kind of leapfrog some of the old ways of doing things was the third piece. So that was really the thought process. But from there, it was the skeleton of what we wanted to do, or the scaffolding of what we wanted to do. But we really had to kind of hit the ground and test different business models, test different price points, and iterate a lot to figure out where we would end up something that customers wanted to pay for and buy regularly.
Okay, so if you were to kind of explain to the listeners your business model that you do, like how do you guys make money? And then was it the technology platform and the kind of the organic healthy food as your differentiator? Was there something that really gave you that differentiation there compared to the
Sure.
competitors out there? Like what made you scale so fast?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, um, on the technology piece, maybe just a little sidebar before, like I think today starting a business is probably easier than ever in terms of getting up and running and the cost of starting it, right? Like when we started, Shopify didn't have a subscription platform. You weren't really able to use some of these out of the box web services to start your business. Like literally today, you can be up and running in like 4 hours and $20. It's just incredible the speed that you can get ideas launched. So for us, the technology was something that was important, but we weren't leading by technology per se. For what we were focused on was really the kind of overall end-to-end customer experience. You think about the Apple product, when you receive the box at your house, the unboxing is as exciting as the turning on of the phone, and as exciting as everything working together. So we were trying to replicate like an Apple-like experience in the food industry, or in the grocery industry specifically. So today, what we do, and it hasn't changed too much over the past decade, is we sell meal kits. So all the ingredients necessary to cook really interesting meals at home. And we sell that on a weekly subscription. So most of our customers get a box every week or two with all the ingredients to cook three different recipes at home. And then we have other things that we add on to that. So we have prepared foods. We have some grocery products, your butter, your olive oil, your specialty desserts, things like that that kind of can make the meal even more special. But that's really the kind of core business of what we do today. We have about 75 different recipes per week, over 100,000 customers purchasing with us regularly across the country in Canada. And the recipes are constantly changing. So we have a very quick product innovation cycle. So that's kind of the business model today. Some of the powers of the business model that I think are important for entrepreneurs to kind of think about when they're starting their company is when it's online, you don't have that natural traffic built into your store like you would a grocery store or a retail outlet in a mall or something like that. So the traffic builder for an online business is marketing dollars on Meta platforms or Google or any of the digital products. So you have to be spending marketing dollars. So you got to be thinking about how do I spend the least amount of marketing dollars to generate the highest ROI? And in the food industry, given that people are consuming food every day, every week, every month, we're able to sell it through a subscription model. And
Mm.
sometimes people are a little bit kind of confused by that, or you think it's not the most customer friendly thing to do. But in reality, when you're on a subscription that can actually get you what you want, better than you actually would have done by picking it yourself, which kind of comes back to the technology piece. There's a lot of value add. So a lot of our customers are just on auto ship, and they'll get a curated selection of orders every week, and they kind of trust to get the right stuff based on the flavor profiles they've set up. So the subscription piece is super important because every dollar that we're putting in marketing, it's a lot easier to earn our return on that marketing investment over a subscription revenue rather than I just sold you, one box or one item or whatever it may be, which is one of the challenges in e-commerce in general.
Well, and your valuation of your company, if anything on subscription, when you have reoccurring customers that are buying each and every month, wow, what an increase in valuation for a business if you can do that. So, really smart. Neil, have you done any analysis? I would think that over a year's time, that all of your customers would save drastically, because you and I both know we go to a grocery store and we're hungry and we're like, oh my goodness, I just spent $1,000 on food. Not that that's ever happened to me. Yes, it has. Many, well, mostly Joanna, but I'll be the go with person. But the point there is that you walk in and you got a list, and then you walk out and you got like a double the list, and then you buy too much food, and I got to go run out for this ingredient. So I like, is there? I wonder if there's any sort of analysis there, or like how much you probably save your clients a lot of money by having this. And not only that, like if you're a $100 an hour person, your time shopping, if you have it on subscription, not only are they saving money, but they're saving a huge amount of time, I think, as
Yeah.
well.
For sure, for sure. And um, to your point on the list being 10 items long, and I'm coming out with 20 items, that's pretty accurate actually. The stats show that 50% of grocery purchases are impulse. So literally, when you're walking in the store, the grocery store is making their profit off of the impulse purchase. So not only are we saving people time and money by eliminating food waste and the trip to the grocery store and any of these impulse purchases, but we have a set price per week that people can commit to too. So if you're on a budget, or if you want to maintain a strictness of budget, $100 a week or $150 a week, you're going to see that every week in and out. And it's not going to fluctuate because you felt like you wanted a tomahawk steak that evening or whatever it is. Like we'll sell tomahawk steaks to you in a recipe format if you want for date night or whatever it is, but there's a certain consistency that's appreciated.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so take me through this scaling period. So maybe you could share some of your numbers there of what like from a people standpoint. So you and John, you guys started the business. You had this vision, or was it this big vision that you're like, we want to blow this up? And it's like, here's the number. Did you set that at the beginning, or was it kind of slow growth? And what did that scaling look like from like a number of people standpoint, a year over year?
Absolutely. So To the question on did we set it at the beginning? So going back to kind of the John Neal balance between the relationship, as we were recruiting, we recruited a third co-founder pretty early on, about 3 or 4 months into the business, as we realized like we have so much work to do, we need extra hands, and we can't really afford to pay anybody. And we had a friend that was interested and wanted to join. So. In order to get him to join, I remember when we were talking to him, we're like, "Hey, we're going to be $100 million business in 5 years," which obviously is like a pie in the sky dream. And we didn't have necessarily a plan to get there. The thing that we did understand though was the industry that we're in was big. Like food is in Canada is a $150 billion industry. The niche of the niche of the industry that we were in was fast growing as well. So you want to be in a place where the tide is lifting kind of all the boats at the same time. So you're putting all of the options that you can behind you. So that was kind of the scoreboard that we put up in the office, without a plan to really get there. But obviously, kind of it drives a little bit of action. It drives bigger thinking too. We knew we didn't want to be a $1 million of revenue business and be kind of chugging along. We actually wanted to be something of scale. So the decisions behind that were super important. So when we launched, I remember the first week was 14 deliveries, all friends and family. We called everybody to get their credit cards and process the payment on the phone. And the website was like a Google form where there was a couple different
Yeah.
options of recipes. And it was super, super basic,
Yeah.
but it worked and people gave good feedback. And then from there, we just kept growing, and right place, right time with the right experience and product was a big formula for the success that we have over the last 10 years. So to give you an idea, like in the first year, we ended at about $1.5 million of run rate on a monthly basis. So call it 125,000 dollars a month of sales. Then we moved into a new facility. We 10x the size of the facility, signed a short-term lease because we weren't sure how fast we were going to grow, how long we were going to be in that facility. Then we went from that kind of 1 million of revenue to about 3.5 million of revenue the next year, which was another kind of huge growth period. And that was when we started to have a little bit more employees, all really junior employees, like hourly employees, helping us kind of portion and deliver food and all that stuff. And then from there, we did a fundraising with a small group of investors that we used some of the funds. We raised about $1 million Canadian. We used some of the funds to hire a couple extra kind of management level employees and invest quite a bit in digital marketing. That allowed us to get to, let's say, about 5.5, $6 million of sales, so another double from there. And then we actually accelerated revenue from then on. And at the same time, we were fortunate enough to actually go public on the Toronto Stock Exchange in 2017. So we were at about a $15 million run rate after 3.5, 4 years. And the capital markets at the time were really in love with recurring revenue businesses. They were in love with direct to consumer businesses, which we were as well. And we were growing, 3 to 5% week on week. So it was just gangbusters growth all the time. We moved facilities again and we went public, and we raised about $22 million in going public. And that allowed us to go national. So we were only in Eastern Canada at the time. We ended up opening another facility, and then the growth continued from there. And we went from $15 million run rate to we actually ended up hitting the $100 million in 5 years. And when we went public, the value of the company was $100 million. So we actually hit the 100 million faster than the 5 years that we kind of promised at the beginning, which was a great feeling. And then from there, it just kept going and going and going. And um, we were, like I said, right place, right time, right industry, and we were very, very customer focused and had a great experience end to end on the product. And during COVID, it was, as you can imagine, with lockdowns in Canada and people scared to leave the house or not allowed to leave the house, the
Yeah.
business just exploded. We were hiring 1,000 people a week. Revenue tripled again at a we went from 150 million of sales to almost 600 million of sales. I was renting facilities across the country from whoever would lease me facilities of that had any refrigeration or frozen capability. It was just crazy, crazy, crazy for 2 straight years. And We were like I was saying kind of in the preamble before we hit record, like we were fortunate to be on the high demand chaos side of the COVID swing, because I know a lot of businesses had the opposite, and it was equally difficult for them to figure out how to do anything with the doors practically shut. So yeah, that's a quick journey on the scaling side, but it was a lot of fun, and I have to definitely great team, great execution, a lot of focus. We didn't do anything other than deliver recipes every week for basically 8 years. And then after 8 years, we said, okay, what else can we do? And that focus allowed us to kind of deliver on the experience for customers during some crazy growth periods.
Yeah. So Neil, I think one of the best things you did was you put the number up on the wall and made it very clear. This is the big goal. This is the
Yeah,
number one priority. And I think that, as a owner of a company, I think it's really important that whatever it is for you, like make it clear what the number one priority is, whether it's a mission statement, or it's like a number. Ideally, if it can be like a number, so there's clarity and direction for all of your team members, your employees that you have. Everybody's got to know like what is the number one thing that we're going after here. And that was one
100%.
thing that like you guys thought it was like pie in the sky, but you guys hit it sooner than the 5 years, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And even more than that, like we broke it down into monthly subscriber targets. So below the $100 million number on the whiteboard, we had how many subscribers do we want to end the month at? So, month one we wanted to end with 100. Month two we wanted to do 300. Month five, so it just we kept just having one number on the whiteboard. And it's so easy to kind of bounce around from idea to idea and topic to topic, or problem to problem when you're running a business. Like you get hit with everything from all angles. um, but that focus is super important. And looking back, it's easy to kind of connect the dots and say, wow, that was manifested through the whiteboard. But it's critical for every business now. And there's a good article by the former CEO of Snowflake, Frank Slootman. He's got a great book. I think it's called Amped Up or Amp It Up. And he wrote a really good article on his LinkedIn about he gives his executives one thing. He's like, you can't pick two things. That you're only allowed to be working on one thing, and if you say anything else, like you're not on my team. So it's like extreme application at $100 billion company.
Very smart. Yeah, that clarity and focus I think is so important. It's more important today than ever because I mean there's just distractions everywhere with social media. It's like, and I think there's a good book called Deep Work by Cal Newport where he talks about like one of the biggest skill sets for our kids growing up. And I know Neil with your boys there, it's like the ability to focus in on one thing. Like with my youngest, I get him just to look at the spot on the soccer ball. I'm like, look at this spot, and I'm like moving around. Stay focused on that one spot, right? Don't take. And so it's interesting because like the ability to go deep and focus and put blinders on, and that's why for me, like I have my earmuffs here when I go into deep work. I put that on, and my phone is not even anywhere close to my desk. Like I know most of the time I keep it downstairs or I keep it so it's out of sight, so I'm not even seeing it. But that's where I think with what you did with the number, honed it in so that people could focus on that. But then the other thing you did was that you worked it back and you created an actual plan, a simple plan. It was not like this big, you know, 25-page business plan that everybody thinks you need to create. Like it's just like we need this amount of subscriptions on a monthly basis to be able to hit that, right?
Yeah,
There's
for
genius in
sure.
that.
The other way of thinking about it that one of our team members brought up was Formula One team, right? Like everyone on the Formula One team needs to be answering the question, how do I make the car faster? Like if you're not there to make the car faster, what are you doing on the Formula One team, right? Like, and that the best teams all know that that's the question they're trying to answer when they're coming to work every day. So it's kind of similar in terms of focus of like what's the conscious or subconscious question that's playing in the background all day as you're making decisions. Is it, I want to grow to $100 million company, or 10 million? Like the number doesn't really matter. The scale of the number is not important. It's just having the goal and the simple clarity to kind of work back from there.
Okay, so I guess the question would be if say it's 100 million is the goal. is like, is this action I'm about to take gonna get me closer to the 100 million, or what can we do to get to the 100 million faster? Are those kind of the questions that you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Like I think the strategic question, when you're sitting in your office kind of thinking with a whiteboard, it's what needs to happen for me to get to 100 million or for the company to get to 100 million dollars. And then the one that you want your employees to be thinking about is this task, action, call, meeting, whatever it is that I'm working on getting me closer to that target. And we layer on the customer component. Like in order to get to 100 million, we have to do the right things for our customers. So it's, are you doing the right thing for your customer that gets us to the $100 million kind of target? It was the early days.
Love that.
Yeah.
Neil, is there something that you did that was like for business that this was like a game changer for me, that you're like, okay, this from a overall development growth, was there like a course or was there a book or was there like a mentor said something to you that was like paradigm shift?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like I think for me, I do a lot of personal development work. I podcast, I read, I go to seminars, I do the work. The one that was the switch for me was really getting introduced to Tony Robbins. So if you're familiar with Tony Robbins, he's a Florida guy as well. He has, he's the goat in the industry, right? He's like the performance coach of all performance coaches. And when we started, I could only afford the audiobook or the book, and I would consume that and do the work, and kind of that helped us. It wasn't a business book per se, but it's a mindset book and a psychology book that helps you get better results at anything that you're doing, whether it's your relationship, your kids, your business, your faith, whatever it is, right? And when we were able to afford to go to the seminars and the conferences, then we're like, oh wow, this is like next level. And we went. That's when the business went from 25 million of sales to $100 million of sales. It was going to the conferences and doing the work for 5 days and stepping out of the business to look at what needs to happen and who needs to be in what seats and what does the business plan kind of look like for the next 12 months. And then there's other levels to his kind of programs as well. So then we go to the advanced programs, and then you're in other circles with people that are doing bigger and better things. So a lot of the way that I've designed my life today and the way that the company runs comes from some of the kind of core principles that we've learned through working with him and his teams. And it's not for everybody. Like I think personal development should be for everybody, but the Tony method is not necessarily for everybody. But definitely getting some outside perspective and models of how to do things is like invaluable success. And I do truly believe that your business will only be as big as the psychology of the leader or the owner that's running the show. Like if you think you can tolerate a $1 million business or a 3 million or a $15 million business, like that's just what it is. And if you're stuck at that level, there's something that you're doing that's not allowing the business to grow past it. So it's been a huge eye opener for me.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, Maxwell talks a lot about that, about
Yeah.
the leader's the lid, right? And it's so true. When you speak to a lot of the development and the guys that coach all the top people across the world, it really comes down to like mindset, because the ability, skill sets. Generally, there's a lot of business owners that have similar skill sets, but their mind, they just think of problems different, right? Like, I mean, you think about the last 4 years, 8 years, really, what Donald Trump went through, and so most recently, getting shot, and regardless whatever side you're on, the point here is that with what he went through, the guy just keeps getting back up. But then, when you look at your own problem that you're going through and you compare it, like, okay, he's got the whole world, half the world hates him. Actually, 48% now, or 47% hate him, 53 love him. But the point there is that you got approximately half the people don't. He's getting shot at. He's got all these challenges that he's going on. He's got billions of businesses, and what you're going through right now. Like if he was in your position, he'd be like, "Oh, this is like nothing."
Exactly.
And so I think context for me is really good with that. It's like when you're going through a challenge, that, put yourself in, would somebody that's at a higher level look at your problem like a real problem or not? And I think that context helps. I don't know how that is for you. And I like when you're going through a major challenge or struggle, like how do you deal with stress, and how do you like maybe switch things from a context to be able to help you keep going through the major problems that you're going through?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, so true and such a good question. Like I can't claim to be the expert at it, but I do think a lot about those different levels of kind of pain thresholds that you go through, and I think resilience is what is what comes to mind. You know, you think about the Trump experience that you just described. Like, there's a lot of people that get knocked down and don't get back up. But if you're an entrepreneur, you need to get knocked down and get back up over and over and over again if you're gonna survive. And I was just chatting about it with my coach yesterday, in uh, the first time that you get a first time employee quits, first time you got to fire an employee, the first time you get sued, the first time a customer gives you bad feedback, like all those firsts hurt a lot. But then you kind of you need to kind of desensitize to them, and it's like, okay, I've seen this story before, right? So for us, there's things that will shake us for sure, but I definitely come to work every day thinking, like, I've seen it all, there's nothing that's gonna shake me, and I'm gonna find a solution, right? The certainty around getting to the other side of the problem. And then that's the level one. And the level two is enjoying it as you're doing that, right? Like, you could be getting sued or going through a divorce, or your business is not doing well and you're pulling your hair out and your stomach is turning and it just feels awful. But the doing tap dancing to work and going through that level of stress is really the kind of life that I want to model. So I try to think about that a lot, and it's not always a first reaction or a conscious thing. Like, you got to kind of sit in it and ask yourself the question: what does this mean? How can I make it better? What other options do I have? And then it goes back to what we were talking about, the partnership, right? If you're in there alone and you're just at your desk and you're kind of like thinking about it in solitude, it works for some people. I need to talk through things. I need to kind of bounce ideas off each other, and kind of work the plan a little bit to see the other side. So for me, that's how I kind of see it. And then I try to coach the team internally here to get similar kind of outcomes on that. But it's the resilience piece is just so key, and you build it like it's scars that get layered on top of layer on top of layer on top of layer, and then you look back and you kind of laugh. You're like,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
I used to complain about that stuff, right? I used to, like, that bothered me at some point. Now it's like I just
Yeah.
throw it at me, I'm good. So
Yeah, no, that context is really helpful when you're going through it. It's like, 10 years ago, that problem seemed like the biggest thing. And just like our kids, right? You take the candy away and they think it's the end of the world. And
yeah,
so you just keep leveling up the challenge. And that's where growth comes in. And you look back and it's like, okay, that's really cool now, but it didn't feel good then. But the reminder is when you're going through the challenge, that's when growth is happening. Just doesn't feel good, but that's like the sign to keep on moving. Don't stop.
for sure. And maybe to just like close that out, like, one of the, we had the COVID boom in the business, which was fantastic. And then as everything kind of opened back up and people started to travel, we had a huge kind of exhale in demand as well. So all the stuff that we built up, we essentially had to undo over the next 2 years. So we're at the tail end of undoing all that. But we went from almost 6,000 employees to less than 1,000 employees. We had to renegotiate 15 different leases to get out of. We our stock took a huge fall. Investors, sentiment changed completely. And to your point, like, I don't want to wish that on anybody, but having gone through it now and made those decisions, like, I'm so much stronger of an entrepreneur, and I have so many more tools in my tool belt, and the team does as well. That it's you're not gonna make the mistake again. I think learning it from other people's mistake is the best way to do it, but sometimes you kind of need to go through some of the punches yourself to really have it sink in too.
Best way to learn the lesson is to go through it yourself, right? You don't, especially if you get stung along the way, you don't forget that the pot is boiling and you get burnt. That sometimes kids got to learn that way, just like business people, right? It's like I told you. It's like, well, I did it anyways. I needed to learn
Exactly.
for myself. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Neil,
yeah.
Neil, are there any like daily habits that you do? I mean, you're operating at a crazy high level. Um, like, what do you do on a day to day that you say, you know what, from a, like a routine standpoint, that this helps keep me on track for productivity to get the most out of my day?
I think similar to yourself, like fitness is a huge part of my life. Like I got to work out, get my body active in some form or fashion. Usually it means some cardio and some weightlifting. I usually do it in the middle of the day to kind of break up the day and reset for the afternoon. Um, I have a morning routine as well. You know, I do some meditation, breath work, cold plunge, all that stuff, kind of in and out. But that's a little more fluid, and I would say that's like the longer term kind of piece of the puzzle for me. Like the short term fix is fitness. Like I can go kind of work out anything that's either on my mind or in my body that I need to kind of get through. But the morning routine helps me kind of be a little bit more centered as I go through the day. um, and then the other thing is, I'm very like I live by my calendar. Like I'm super diligent about what I put in, what I don't put in, and I try to batch different parts of the day by similar excuse me, similar types of work. So coaching one-on-ones, external meetings, deep work, like we were talking about before. Right now, we're focused on buying businesses. So there's a lot of external conversations with other entrepreneurs and how to structure deals and get the finance and all that stuff. So that's all kind of part of one or two afternoons a week that I try to bunch things together. So that helps really kind of coordinate everything and keep my energy aligned with similar outcomes. But I think the one that, for me, it's having a little bit of balance in the schedule, sticking to the schedule, and having some sort of mindfulness kind of relaxation practice, and then the hard sweat that kind of resets the body as well.
Yeah. No, you said a couple things in there that resonated. So the cold plunge, like I'm a huge cold plunge. I never got it before, but once I started
Yeah,
doing it, I was like, okay, I'm all in. And
you
it's
got to come do it in Montreal at -30 in the
oh
morning. That's
yeah,
that's the real test.
yeah, yeah. I'll even yeah. Next time I'm up there, I'll give you a shout. I'll come
Sounds
over in
good.
the cold there. But yeah, I found that to be super helpful. And you said something that was really smart that I found. So I started working out in the afternoon, and so my first half of the day is all my deep work, and then my back half after the workout are all my meetings. But I found that when I didn't work out in the afternoon, my back half of my day, I felt like tired. But when I worked out in the middle of the day, I got energy. And so they say, like, if you want to if you want to kind of recharge, you either have like a short nap, and like half the population can nap and be rejuvenated. The other, like my wife, she gets tired, right? If she naps, you have a nap, or you work out. If you work out, you actually get energized. And so I found my back half of my day now super productive because that workout at around noon. So it's figuring out what your highest and best kind of use is, and what kind of work for what time. Everybody's different, but that worked well for me.
The other thing that I find it's super helpful recently is just going on walks, just longer walks to like process stuff, or like if you're on a call or whatever it is, like that's the one that I find when I'm most kind of amped up from uh conversation, decision, whatever it is on the stress side. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go walk this off, and that like just completely resets everything, and gets into kind of the new state pretty quickly.
Yeah, Steve Jobs, I think he did walk and talk meetings.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not anywhere near that level, but
It's hard to do
yeah,
that in Montreal and Toronto when there's like
for
snow
sure.
blizzard come in. It's like, but
Exactly.
I found the same thing too. It's funny how like entrepreneurs, you catch on to things, but like if you can catch kind of the morning sun in the evening, it's really good for your circadian rhythm, and you sleep a little better too. But I found when I get my steps in, it's just like from a mental state standpoint, it helps big time. So I totally
Yeah,
agree with you on that.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's great. It's really good insight there. So, Neil, what would you say is your biggest challenge when you're investing your money in today's market?
So I think I've been pretty fortunate, running a public company and having access to selling down some of my shares without selling my entire stake of the business, to kind of diversify personal net worth over the past couple of years. Um, I still own 12% of the business today, and still kind of operate on a day to day. So like most of my day is still running good food and then acquiring other businesses. So like part of the investment stuff that I'm looking at today is small private companies that are 1 to 3 million of EBITDA or profitability. Where the owner wants to kind of stay involved, and the business has some good growth prospects as well. So for us, what we're looking for in those scenarios is owner that wants to kind of stick around in a business that's doing pretty well, but it's not really deals that are available to the general public. You can buy public companies, right, that are doing those types of things, but under the current kind of rules and regs, you're not going to put you know 10 grand or 50 grand or 100 grand into these smaller kind of private equity type deals. So for us, that's where I spend a lot of my time focused on. I think one of the challenges for the average entrepreneur is usually you're kind of equity rich, cash poor for a long time, right? Like you
Mm,
have maybe a little bit of salary that you're taking out of the business in the
yeah,
early days, but not really enough to kind of go above and beyond and invest. And then anything that you do own, like you could be a paper millionaire, but you're not able to take any of that cash out, or you don't
yeah,
think you can take any of that cash out. So one of the things that I definitely try to tell entrepreneurs is, once you kind of made it through that first startup phase of, the first 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it takes, definitely like do your family a favor and, try to take a little bit of money off the table somehow so that you can invest it in something super basic and simple, like, S&P index funds and NASDAQ ETFs and stuff like that. Like just set it and forget it, and your wealth will compound, and you should have a money machine on the side that's taking care of your family, no matter what happens to the business. So I think one of the challenges that a lot of the entrepreneurs face is really just that liquidity problem of like, I have some equity, but I can't take any money out. The bank won't lend any money to kind of dividend myself some money, or I'm not profitable enough. And that little dance I see quite often. Um, and then I think, if on the more advanced side, like once you actually do have some capital to invest, regulation's tough. Like there's a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, a lot of paperwork to do any types of attractive private deals. And you're more into this game than I am, but especially when it comes to cross-border from Canadian investors to the US. There's lots of regulations and size minimums there. So I'm fortunate enough to have enough capital today that I don't have to worry too much about the size piece, but the complexities of doing cross-border deals and finding the right people to back, and finding the right deals to back, it does take time. So you got to kind of pick your spots and then bet heavy on them.
yeah. So I mean, like investing, you cross border for sure. That was one of the things that right off the bat, for us in our real estate investment firm, we run a real estate team just north of Toronto, and investors used to be able to come to us and say, I want to buy some real estate, and we could find them a really great deal that would have really strong upside and would actually make money. It would cash flow, just like a business. You want something that's profitable, right? Not something that you're feeding. And so that's where it just got to a point where prices got to a certain, they were so high and interest rates went up, and rent control as well, where you can only raise rents. During COVID it was zero, but now it's only 2.5%. So if you bought a property and they're paying say $1,000 a month that they were locked in over the years at that lower rate, and they only raised the minimum, you might be at $1,700, and so they're paying $700 and you can't bring them up. So you're offering cash for keys, and we've offered Neil $30,000 and they've come back and said $100,000 and I'm not moving. So that's where it was like very clear that we needed to build something down at cross border, as you had mentioned, and some of these markets like Florida and the Carolinas. But you nailed it. You need to have people boots on the ground. And so I went and recruited all the like acquisition specialists and asset managers that have been doing this for 10 to 20 years that have track records of going full cycle. So that's where if you're doing anything cross border, I totally agree. Like you need to have, well, the ability to make sure that you have a competitive advantage, because and getting the right people doing it, or you need to either be like an expert or you're working with somebody that you trust that can be doing that for you to build. Because I mean, let's say if you're going to invest, you want that competitive advantage, right? You want to be able to get that edge.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if you're locking up your money for a little bit longer and it's private and illiquid, like you gotta have that confidence and connection with the people that are on the ground to feel like, okay, well, this, the 5-year hold or the 7 or the 10-year hold, whatever it is actually going to be worth that liquidity premium of not just investing in the stock market. And I think, what I've seen in terms of like numbers, is uh it kind of, when you start to hit like a $3 million net worth, it starts to make a lot of sense to put a percentage of your assets into private. Up until that amount, it's a little bit, it's like small kind of bets here and there, but not really a full asset allocation piece of the portfolio. And then, once you're over 5 million of net worth, it should be like 50% of your money in private illiquid investments, because you're basically able to cover costs, and you should be able to kind of have the lifestyle you want. So that's, it's kind of the ratios that I've seen and that I personally use on the investment side, whether it's private and real estate or private equity or venture or any of those types of things.
Yeah, Tony Robbins talks quite a bit about that, about the private equity space, on the returns there and being able to get in. Because I think a lot of investors just don't know about it. These outside of, there's the market, which there's a place for that, and then if there's higher returns outside of that. But then you're right, there's a net financial asset requirement to be able to get into some of these as well, just like in some
For
of our
sure.
in our deals.
Yeah.
All right, well, Neil, I could seriously, we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but I'm going to respect your time here, and I know the listeners here. We got to keep it during this certain time frame here, so just under an hour. So, you ready for the rapid fire part of the talk?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right. So, which book has had the biggest impact on your business or wealth creation journey?
I would say 10x is easier than 2x by
Mm,
Dan Sullivan. So it's just a crazy mindset shift.
yeah. Yeah, solid book. What would you say would kind of be like the biggest takeaway from that book, Neil? Because that was like a game changer for me as well. If you were to kind of like summarize or take a key nugget out of that, what would you maybe give like a little sneak peek there for the listeners of why they should pick that book up? Because I love that book too. Really solid.
Yeah, yeah, maybe two things, and it's kind of aligned with the conversation we've been having. One is the schedule. Like, you got to put the deep work, uninterrupted stuff in the calendar so that you don't get distracted with all little things and you actually work on the big goal. And then the title of the book, essentially, right? It's like it's the same amount of work and potentially harder to do 2x of a return on anything, whether it's improving your product 2x or improving your relationship 2x or improving your company 2x. It's the same amount or harder to do 2x as it is to do 10x. So if you start with a bigger goal, it actually like creates these different constraints in your mind. And I find it's tough to get employees to think like that, but I think the entrepreneur community, it's like, it's all natural for us. So those are the 2 points that I find pretty magic.
Yeah, it narrows and filters down your answers pretty quick. Like, is this going to get us 10x? And if not, you just throw it off the table and you go after something bigger
Distraction.
from the get go. Yeah, so
Yeah.
good. Okay, cool. Second question: if others were to describe you in three different words, what would the three words be?
I would say hopefully kind. Uh, I would say uh, determined and inspiring, hopefully.
Yeah. Neil, I'd love to hear one of your speeches in your company. I'm sure it would be rallying the troops there. It kind of reminds me of the Mel Gibson before they're going into battle. Come on, guys, let's go. You and John are
Yeah,
standing at the front of your 1,000 employees. Say, let's go, guys. Let's deliver these meals. And I mean,
yeah,
it's a great mission, right? So,
for sure, for
uh,
sure. I don't
I
know, I
love.
don't have a kilt that I wear, but it looks a lot like that.
Well, you're whatever you're doing, you're doing good. Okay, and here it's last question. What advice would
Yeah,
you give your younger self?
I think the you're talking about the kids piece is something I think about quite a bit recently. So I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I love my life where it's at today. And definitely, I wouldn't have been able to do the first 10 years of Good Food without my wife being super supportive and not having kids at home. So if you are able to kind of separate those things and have that extreme focus of I'm going to dedicate uh, my kind of vocation hours in the early part of my life, I think I would have taken it even more seriously of like, okay, well, this is the time where you need to put in the effort, because when you have kids, you're going to want to prioritize that part of your life, and you need to set yourself up so that when you're at that part of your life, you're kind of able to spend the time where it matters most, which the family kind of comes first. So.
Yeah, well said. Very good. Okay, and where can listeners learn more about, the business? How can they subscribe to be able to get on that monthly subscription to be able to save time and money? Um, I'm definitely going to be directing my wife there to see. I'll text you a little bit later there if we can get that bill down, or food bill down, which I think it will. But how can the listeners uh, uh, find out a little bit more about your business?
Yeah, for sure. So makegoodfood.ca is where the main website is. Like I said, that's where you sign up for the food. We're also buying lots of businesses, so any kind of consumer-based businesses that are for sale or want to reach out, you can email me directly, Neil at makefood.ca. And then I also, we didn't even get into it, but I also run kind of a wellness retreat on the side. That's bluevalleysouth.ca, and that's another whole podcast in itself. It's a lot of interesting stuff going on there.
Awesome. Neil, well, thank you so much for today. It was just such a great interview. There's so many nuggets there. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate the interview.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming to the Mark Faris Experience. Appreciate you guys a lot, and keep on going full out moving forward.